Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Magic the Gathering Arena. Event is complete, who cares? We did that event. So on this Wednesday we've got a little bit of a surplus. No, that's not true. We've got a bit of surplus of video game news to talk about today, so we really are going to try and push it hard so that we don't end up with a ridiculously large amount of extra things. Now, it doesn't seem like there's a draft right now that you could play anyways. A traditional draft, which would cost gems. But otherwise, a ranked draft is just this one, Guilds of Ravnica, that we had already done. And it would just give us Guilds of Ravnica. That's good because we already have, we're a little low on gold. I spent some on those Nyx card skins, and that was probably a mistake. And now we've got our new daily deals, featured deals. Card backs. The sleeves probably are worth more than a specific skin is, but none of them are actually worth anything. Today is, as I said earlier, the 26th, and there's a 29th day this year because it's a leap year. So by Monday we will be done with this month, and that means, well, apparently it's going to end in 2 days. That means pretty much everything will set. We have one more month to get the mastery up to 90, and maybe we won't make it. Like I may just quickly pull a 180 on the idea that you need to buy the mastery pass every expansion and get all these extra cards. Maybe as just a new player returning to Magic after many years, maybe you just need to do the Mastery Pass once, maybe twice, and then that gets you enough cards for a bit of a backlog. It's going to increasingly be ridiculous as you get more and more Mastery Passes to have card packs that give you like Ravnica expansions and such. So yeah, I don't know how that's really going to work with the next expansion. I guess we should just try for victories. It is a little silly to think that we would be able to do anything else. And I really don't care enough about brawling. It's impossible for me, as somebody who's just playing Magic Arena, to get into the idea of wanting to play a commander deck and brawl when they are either forcing you to pay about $12.50 to get the Brawler's Guild Hall to always be able to brawl, or you can only play for free on Wednesday. Like, just a stupid thing there. Instead of using a carrot approach, they're literally using a stick approach to try and convince people to play Brawl. Or probably more accurately, they're trying to convince people not to play Brawl because they don't want people playing Brawl. They want them playing Standard, which doesn't work for a lot of people because, let's face it, the people who are tired of Standard are still going to be tired of Standard until there's a major change of what Standard is, and that's going to require something like Pioneer to intrigue those players. We're starting late today, and I can already see that YouTube has decided to punish me for that. What I did was, man, I say no, too much. I need to work on that. I decided last night to go one more hour, one more episode on Batman Arkham Asylum. I'm doing something weird here this time around on this game that I shouldn't really do, which is watching other YouTubers. I've watched 2 other YouTubers, like critical reviews, retrospective reviews of Arkham Asylum, or the entire Arkham series was one of them. And that obviously would be coloring my my opinions. It is exactly the kind of groupthink I've railed against in the past, and so I know I'm wrong for doing it. I kind of only figure that maybe subconsciously there's not a lot more to say about Arkham Asylum. It is a pretty simplistic game, and how you fall on whether you like the fight system or whether you like the fact that the island is way too small in my opinion, and thus you have a lot of collectibles, way too many collectibles in my opinion, right next to each other. Like you can see, compared to a modern open world, or even compared to Arkham City, you're in a single room, and in that single room there might be 3 or 4 collectibles, sometimes directly next to each other, often not really even gated by any ability you wouldn't naturally have. There is, I think, also an argument that the Metroidvania, Metroid Prime idea that is being used for Arkham Asylum isn't the best idea compared to, say, let's see, do I want to attack with anything? Well, I can attack with that. That would probably be fine, but you know what, I'll just do no attacks this turn. The idea, a lot of my problems with Arkham Asylum, of which there's a few, is the idea that Batman, the Batman I imagine in my head, which is closest to an approximation of Batman from the animated series. He's supposed to be a detective, he's supposed to be always prepared. I mean, he's notoriously the one that's always carrying kryptonite in case Superman goes crazy. So the idea that he would have come back just from capturing the Joker, and his utility belt was not fully stocked with abilities that yeah, I'm just gonna activate this because I don't see a reason to push my luck. Like, if he can somehow counter this, then I guess he deserves the win. It's nice the game ends it there when he hits at 0 and doesn't just continue the cycle. Although I imagine some people would enjoy watching the cycle every now and then. So yeah, there is that not my Batman concept. I got to a point in one episode where Batman just makes this improved super grappling hook that lets him tear down walls. And he literally just grabs a bunch of junk off a table in his secret backup bat cave that is under Arkham Asylum, and kind of just holds it close to his grapple gun and it just automatically connects to it. Whereas that doesn't really feel like a characterization of Batman. Like, Batman's not particularly the one that was ever making the gadgets. His character, the idea that he would have the patience and time and even the mentality to take a break from his vigilante obsession to build a item is crazy. He was always rich. He was always hiring people and having Wayne Tech develop things for him. It is more likely that Bruce Wayne and Batman would be on the scale of being an elite rich person who doesn't even know how technology works than he would be capable of doing things on his own, building things on his own. That's also why he has like the Bat computer, like a super genius computer that's doing things for him. Often you see him literally just talking like Siri to the Bat computer because it is clearly a dumbed down interface for him. Like, he's supposed to be a strategist and a great detective, but he's not stupid by any means, but his technology wouldn't be something Batman could really deal with. And particularly in Arkham Asylum, you have Oracle, Barbara Gordon on the comms, so she would have been the one to talk him through like any hacking or computer thing that he would have to do. Like, the technological aspects work very good for Oracle, Barbara Gordon being much younger and forced to be much more technologically intelligent as she's during that time trapped in a wheelchair instead of being Batgirl. But yeah, once you've settled on a few questions, once you've had your opinion decided on a few things, with the exception of the final boss fight, which is something you're just gonna see at the end and then be left with probably a bitter taste in your mouth. There isn't a lot more to say about Arkham Asylum, so that's probably why I'm watching other people's reviews. Also, I must have looked up something on Google, and now the YouTube algorithm is suggesting things to me which it shouldn't even be doing, but I don't know. YouTube does whatever it wants. So you know what I did? Come to think of it, there's a secret area that I could not find while recording one episode inside the warden's office that you have to blow up 3 times, and it has like an Easter egg for Arkham City, and nobody found it basically until the announcement for Arkham City was well underway and people already knew the game was out. So I half suspect that they retroactively patched it in. Speaking of always online, the game literally kicked me out of the single player because it disconnected from its servers, but all its servers ever do in Arkham Asylum, as far as I can tell, are maintain the leaderboard. So it just has always online, I guess, what is that? I want to say DLC, but that's not it. DRM, Digital Rights Management, yeah. It has like some kind of custom always online digital rights management or something that it is running that if you're playing offline, if your server is not connected, maybe if you start the game with everything off, or block the firewall request that it made, I think it made a firewall request, then maybe you could play it offline mode to start with. But really ridiculous to be kicked out of a single-player game just because the network connection was lost for probably a minute or two. It does have a decent checkpointing system, so I didn't run out of lose any real progress. It'd be kind of hard to lose any progress, frankly. Let's see. Well, I guess what we do here is we just play in his turn regardless, because he may play something with haste that is reasonable to believe. I don't think I'm gonna play Arkham City anytime soon, maybe 6 months down the road. It would be kind of silly to just encourage burnout on collectathon games. Also, between Arkham Asylum and 3 Lego Batman games, I'm getting more and more to the point where I'm making myself look like I'm a super Batman fan, when the truth is I don't really feel like I am. I think I'm an average person who saw a lot of the Batman movies on TV at some point, and maybe hasn't really sat through a lot of them. I probably haven't seen the last 3 or 4 Batman movies that come out. I didn't watch Joker. I don't really care about it. Most of that. I remember the animated series and a little bit of Batman Beyond, but I don't think I actually watched Batman Beyond. Certainly didn't really watch too much Teen Titans or Teen Titans Go, or I read for the New 52 reboot all of those Batman and Bat Family comics and was pretty much completely unimpressed with those runs. And I think I probably, in the New 52, the Batman runs were probably just starting Death in the Family when I stopped, and I was mostly reading Court of Owls stuff, which I'll say was an interesting idea, but didn't feel like Batman at a time when they were doing a reboot, and it should have kind of felt like Batman. But I honestly think that the truth is that most of the Batman comic series is often pretty bad. Probably slightly better than other DC comics, and they sell better because of name recognition alone, but yeah, you're not really guaranteed a great experience. I found out that the Arkham Asylum comic book that is the loose reference for the Arkham Asylum game was written, or I think written by Grant Morrison, the maker of Watchmen, which his name does have an air of quality to it, but the comic book was incredibly darker and really did not in any way fit for the rated T15 video game. And they took the general concept, they didn't really tell the story. From the looks of the screenshots I saw for the Arkham comic book, it seems like it was much closer to a Sandman type horror story than anything else. So yeah, I've got 2 goals I need to do after today and over the weekend. Is 1, I need to schedule all those videos and put in all the data that I uploaded, and then 2, I need to free up more space and continue the upload chain. I am at a point where I've scheduled videos to basically only come out once on the weekdays. We're waiting for the already scheduled Magic episodes to stop airing on a weekday basis, and then I will start putting them on a weekend only basis. That's my plan. So we're going down much closer to something. I guess PewDiePie would be a relative comparison to make. He, with the exception of his recent break, was putting out one video a day, and that's kind of what I'm getting down to. Also, one pre-recorded episode of a game per day, and then 2 episodes of Magic Arena on the weekend, and the no change to the live streams, with the exception of trying to keep the live streams to air, trying to do those earlier in the morning, not late in the afternoon. Let's see. Yeah, I guess I can just do no work here. There's nothing really stopping me. Alright, and then you just attack with this one and this one, and you can't do nothing about it. And I think I can just do this, and then do this, and I think I just win. So no need to let them go to their turn in case they had some kind of solution there, which they almost certainly wouldn't. Alright, we are speed running into victories. Alright, let's start covering the news, since there's really nothing else to say as far as the accountability section. Honey Pop 2 has been delayed due to the developer's health concerns. Honey Pop 2 was introducing the concept, well, if you don't know what Honey Pop is, it's a match 3 game slash sex dating simulator. It's a dating simulator that, well, at least the first game was a dating simulator with, once you had gotten your relationships up to the highest with any one girl, then you could have a sex scene with them. That was still a match 3 minigame. Now the game is introducing double dates, which I guess might open up the door for a threesome scene, but I wouldn't be surprised if the double dates are actually a system in which you have to pick and choose or play very well, and most people will probably have to pick a girl and focus on that one girl. So let's see. Honey Pop 2 was supposed to be out relatively soon. Everything was going well. They put out he put a trailer on his YouTube. There may have been a previous delay before, and then there was a slight confusion on his part, or as far as him trying to introduce a well, he was trying to introduce a Funatari, so a chick with a dick. It was, sorry for the rude language, but that was it. That was his idea there. Not particularly a real transgendered person per se, with all the personality and around that. It's simply there's a larger than you would think niche group of people that are into that. So he was trying to offer that. It in his mind, I think, got confused with someone who actually transitioned, and that's where you get, or someone who is actually transgendered, and then I guess eventually he settled on you'll have an option to turn it on or off, whether they're post-op or pre-op. But there's a problem with certainly people being upset around the idea of fetishizing somebody who has a mental condition that they have to go through major surgery. The SJWs would never have been happy around this anyways, so somebody was going to be upset always. And certainly a lot of straight people don't want to have a game where if you're going to try to 100% the game, you end up having to seduce a pre-op transgendered person, which is what you really settled as far as the character there, which is not really the trope, and it just kind of shows a lack of understanding. And he's been trying to do that with all the girls, like even in Honey Papa 1, that each girl was a stereotype of somebody you would date in an average romance dating visual novel, and he did it pretty well, or he at least put his own twist on it. So there was a little bit of controversy there, like people who wanted to be outraged were outraged, people who more than likely were never ever going to play Honey Pop 2 anyways. I've covered Honey Pop on my YouTube channel. It wasn't particularly hard to censor out, particularly if I hadn't installed the uncensored patch, it would have been super easy to censor out. So I honestly, if you were the parent of a 17, 18-year-old and they wanted to play Honey Pop, you probably wouldn't be too upset if you caught them playing that. Although there is an argument about being a healthy mental person of 17 and 18 years old and playing a dating game instead of going out and dating for real. Like the bigger danger is you're raising an incel or just a socially awkward person. Let's see. What does this do? This wants to exile this card. Alright, well then we'll do this. You can exile that card all you want. So it was delayed to 2020. Now it's being delayed even further. The quote here is, unfortunately, it seems I have once again developed a serious health condition akin to my mid-2017 health condition issue. If you've been following that long, that will delay Honey Pop 2, an already very delayed game, more. So, I sincerely apologize. I don't know how long it will take for me to fully recover, but I must prioritize my health for however long the healing process may take. Now, the thing about Honey Dev compared to Yandere Simulator's developer, Yandere Dev, is Honey Dev released Honey Pop 1. It sold really good. It was, whether it was just everybody was in on the joke or people secretly liked it, take your pick. But it sold well, and so a sequel being delayed has a lot more credibility in my mind than the original. Now, what is his health problem? I have no idea. It's not being said, and it's not like there are any comments ever on any Tech Raptor articles. Let's see. see if maybe I could find something. I mean, I guess I could search. Maybe he's just being private and he never maybe he just doesn't say what the health issues are ever, and never did before. I mean, it could be anything. It could be mental stress, overworkness. Like, I kind of really wouldn't even be upset if that's what I wouldn't really be upset if that was the case, is that his mental health is the problem, or it could be that he's just some it could be anything, frankly. Let's see. That's clear now. So now I'm on Reddit trying to see through speculation. So this guy wants to exile that. So instead we'll do that. And then resolve. Let's see. There's a lot of speculation that it would be an Epic Store exclusive, and I don't. This might be. Yeah, but no real talk about what his actual health is. So that is a frustratingly devoid of facts news article. We get the part that's the part that will concern the consumer. The game will be delayed a little bit more, but we don't get the part that would be helpful if you were going to empathize and try to relate to the person, which would be the part where they actually say, oh, I have Crohn's disease, I have leukemia, I have cancer. I wouldn't be upset if it was, I wouldn't be surprised if it was cancer. I probably would be slightly upset if it was cancer, but that's believable. Even though, for the most part, Total Biscuit's podcast is now completely abandoned, which they tried to keep going with it, but they've not been consistent with his wife. Total Biscuit ran his YouTube channel while suffering from cancer, and his wife secretly also seemed to have cancer, but a much lesser degree of form of it. Although, who knows, I guess it might be that somebody isn't telling the truth there. It is weird that two people would have cancer at the same time that were married to each other, but not impossible. And Total Biscuit died, so if he was faking his cancer, he faked it really good. But I am, the only reason I'm even talking about this and talking this way is I'm extremely cautious on YouTubers, even somewhat famous YouTubers, complaining about health conditions, particularly if that is the only income source for them, is to be a YouTuber and get people to friend them. We've just seen far too many GoFundMes, far too many vulnerable narcissists is the mental diagnosis. People that fake illness or exaggerate illness to get people's attention. Whereas I would say, and this is just an opinion, I don't think the Honeypop developer needs to fake anyone's illness to get someone's attention. He's already getting plenty of people's attention just by creating his games. So yeah, but yeah, I'm not trying to align or accuse anybody of anything, but you have to be really cautious, and you have to be a little disconnected anyways. Like, just straight up say, well, this person may have cancer. I can't really, most people can't really take on the burden and the weight of the world. So now sacrifice that. And I don't have enough. Wait a minute, why do I not have enough? Why did I should have enough, yeah. Alright, so now I've got a decent amount of health if I can eat all this food. Well, I feel like I rambled into a dangerous and potentially libelous conversation there. My point there was, like, we've all seen a lot of GoFundMes. Jim Sterling constantly having medical things I think that are true, but also kind of constantly using it as a good excuse to not really work when he doesn't want to work. If I can eat enough of these to get my health all the way up to what it needs to be. But also, in fairness to Jim Sterling, I don't think he's specifically skipped long sections of not making YouTube content. Although his YouTube content does tend to wildly vary. Sometimes you get well thought out, long conversations, reviews, and things that are actually written. And sometimes you just get him being silly or being a jerk. Which is inconsistent, to say the least. Moving on, speaking of jerks, Gamma Citra has an article. The new legal counsel is seeking institutional reform in Riot Games discrimination lawsuit. What do they mean by institutional reform? Let's see. It probably so here's a quote. Our well-qualified statisticians are already analyzing pay data. We intend to recover the compensation due to the women of Riot Game and achieve institutional reform in order to level the playing field for women. So it's legalese for saying we're going to make sure that we are paying the women the same as the men so that they can't sue us again. Which, no doubt, that probably was part of the settlement agreement and requirement, and it would just be in Riot Games and any company's best interest to, at least on paper, have mathematical justifications and tricks to justify why people are paid certain ways. Or you could just be simple about it and pay everybody the same, but that would be communism, or at that point. See, the problem with with capitalism and paying employees and wages are you always come from this perspective that certain people deserve a worse life, or deserve to have less nice things, or they deserve to be unable to support themselves, feed themselves, pay for health care as easily as other people. That's the difference between somebody that gets paid minimum wage and somebody that gets paid $1 million a year. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, the idea of money and the idea of money being necessary to pay for basic human needs, things that should be basic human rights, falls apart. It might make sense to make people believe in fairness that never really exists, to have certain people paid extra so that they can buy fancy cars, second houses, third houses, although at a certain point even having 3 houses is kind of ridiculously exorbitant. But the thing that's missing around that idea is basic needs need to be covered, and often basic needs aren't covered, and basic needs are getting commingled by the same currency, the same credits. So if everybody as a human being just had a natural right to eat, and they were given a ration credit of food, the basic foods, not the fancy foods, just basic milk, cheese, butter, eggs, bread, things like that, were just ration credits. Everybody got that much to survive per person, and then you worked a job to give you just cash to play with, just fun money. That would be a much better system than the current wage system we have now. Of course, that is a more complicated system, and there are things that have to be thought in that. There needs to be some incentivization to ensure people actually work at all. The truth of the matter is, I think a lot of people would choose to never work if they could get their basic needs met, and we don't have quite enough automation in things like farming and such for that to work. So there probably would have to be some requirements or some deferments as far as why certain people couldn't meet the requirements of working 10, 20, maybe even 40 hours a week. Probably a lot less than 40 hours a week. But even in the realms of farming and ranching, you need considerably less people than you did 200 years ago. Like hundreds and hundreds of less people, of fewer people. So that's not the kind of work that people are usually doing. Most people in the United States aren't farmers or ranchers making food that they eat or consume themselves. Most people are working in services jobs or in retail jobs. A lack of focus on consumerism can easily eliminate retail jobs, and most people would quit their retail jobs because they don't pay enough, and there's no need to really prop up the retail economy as much as it is propped up, in my opinion. I'm getting into an economics rant here. And services jobs, well, the reason why so many services jobs exist are simply because of corporate greed, and you can fix that pretty easily. Like, if you're a customer service representative for a phone company, more often than not, you're talking to people about their billing. Why are you talking about the billing? Because the phone service company has created an incredibly complicated and intentionally glitchy system to overcharge and rip off people for phone service. If the right to free speech was expanded to the point where everybody gets a government issued slow data, unlimited talk cell phone service, and with maybe a cheap flip phone that comes with that, even if you can qualify and don't need to buy a phone yourself, then you eliminate pretty much all cell phone service jobs right then and there. You'll have the occasional people that have trouble, certainly, but it's the difference between the tier 1 customer service operator who is one of 400 plus employees in one office, of which there's probably multiple offices, and a tier 3 customer service rep who actually knows what they're talking about when you're having technical problems and will actually be able to help you. That's when you start getting transferred. Like every time you're getting transferred, you may on some rare occasions be getting transferred from one tier 1 to another tier 1, but more often than not you're getting transferred up the ladder to a tier 2, tier 3, potentially tier 4. So a lot of those jobs can be automated. ATMs have done that quite handedly with the likes of bank tellers. Like, there used to be a need for 2 or 3 times as many bank tellers in every bank. Now there's considerably fewer banks in general and considerably fewer bank tellers that exist, just because automation and going through a computer. Like self-checkout has eliminated most of the a significant portion of the number of baggers and checkout people at grocery stores. Yeah. So the jobs that people tend to do in the United States are usually something like that, like Walmart type jobs. The lucky few get to be artists, get to go make the video games they dream to make of, get to be painters, get to be musicians, get to do anything that would actually intrigue their brain or interest them at all, instead of just being doing something that nobody cares about, that the person themselves doesn't care about. Let's see, well, do we want to sacrifice that? Okay. So if I do this, do I have enough here to win? I don't think I do. I think I'm a little short. 4, 5, yeah. I need 2 more damage and then I'll win next turn. And this guy I don't think would be able to do 7 damage. He's playing white, blue, green, a 3 color, so I guess maybe he might have a spell in his hand to do some damage. But that's about it. Moving on, we got tons of games. We're going to try and rush through these. We have a game here called Smart Moves, which looks like it might be a Crypto the Necrodancer game. Otherwise, it is just a pixel graphics top-down RPG. Like, let's see. Yeah, you hit these guys and then they move in specific patterns based on how you move. Yeah, so it is a Crypto the Necrodancer clone without perhaps the music. This is $5.59 discounted English and Russian. Generally speaking, I don't think I'd ever actually be able to play Crypto the Necrodancer on anything other than its easiest mode, which I believe doesn't actually make you play on the beats. That was kind of what was intriguing about the Cadence of Hyrule spin-off game, because that was definitely something different that could have happened. Alright. We're gonna block with this and just do that, yeah. This has first strike, and so then I think I need to do that. And while we're at it, I guess we'll sacrifice food. That way we just know we have a nice buff there. And then we pass. And we pass. And then it's my turn. And play that if we want. And we can play that if we want. And we can play that if we want. And we can play that if we want. We can put that on the top. There you go. Just pushing our luck like crazy. And I could attack, but it's just easier to do this than it is to do anything else. While this is going, we have a game on Steam called Arcane Shadow, which looks like a League of Legends clone type game. MMO, real-time strategy, play versus play is what it's tagged as. Well, I threw in MMO, real-time strategy, and PvP. It's early access, it's free to play, it's online only with in-app purchases, it's English only as far as the language. So this looks fine as a League of Legends potential clone. Maybe it's a little simplistic for how big these are. It might be a little bit more zoomed in than you would prefer. It does kind of look like it's a mobile game being ported to PC, like a tablet game. But it definitely is not my kind of game, so that I'd ever play. So we'll move on forward. We got another commander card. And some more mastery things. It'll be irritating, I suppose, if it turns out that I don't get all the skins, but you don't even get it thrown in your face if you don't get all the skins. So, like, as soon as this mastery, Theros mastery is gone, they'll just move on to the next mastery, and you would never have a way of filling in whatever you missed, and you kind of would forget rather quickly. Yeah, I guess today we may just get a lot of victories and try and get more cards in general. Let's take a moment to just look at our collection and see what we've gotten that's really new. We got a 4th copy of this, a 2nd copy of that, a 3rd copy of that. And I'm looking at everything I collected. So when I opened that card pack and I got duplicates, those duplicates from Theros Beyond Death all just went into that secret vault that's not even shown, and everything else pretty much got done, whatever it's done. And you're really not getting any information looking at your collection this way, where you see some of these have 1 and some of these have 4, because I believe this is a Theros Beyond Death card, whereas this I believe is a Ravnica card. So it makes a lot of sense that I'd only have 1 Ravnica card, while it would make a lot of sense I would have 4 Theros Beyond Death cards. So you have to dive in deeper than just the cursory view for the collection to be useful whatsoever. It's not sorted. The collection is definitely not sorted the way I would expect it to be sorted. Because if I was going to make a binder, uh, first of all, I would have 6 binders in Magic. If I was just going to do this off the top of my head, I imagine people are smarter than me have thought of this. 6 binders, 1 just lands of custom value, so a really thin binder for that. And then I would have a box for basic lands, and I probably wouldn't hold more than 60 of any basic lands, and I probably would only hold the most interesting visual basic lands that I would want, and I would double sleeve those and actually play with those, and everything else would just go in a box or be given away. Basic lands in particular are not useful. In the custom lands, the non-basic lands binder, I would have everything tabbed by expansion. So whenever there's something going out of standard, you can just move a divider forward and say these are not in standard, or you shift those from one binder to a non-standard binder. Like, you can have a whole bunch of binders with this idea, but you really probably would just need a divider to say everything in the back here is non-standard and everything at the front is the newest things. You would want to go in reverse chronological order with the cards. Same would be true for each of the other 5 colors. So you'd have a red binder with red cards, a blue binder with blue cards, and ideally you'd want the binders to actually be that color, so it would just make it nice and easy. I'm sure somebody makes some Magic themed binders that are overpriced like that. And after that point, you would want to start subdividing the cards with the cost, because if you don't know what you're looking for, or you're just looking for a cheap card, having a subdivision of 1-cost cards solves that problem quite easily. And then you would potentially want to subdivide your cards under cost alphabetically. Now, dividing it further by rarity might be useful if you're selling the cards, but if you're just a collection in only type person, if you're just trying to get enough cards to play with and have a decent collection, subdividing by rarity is not going to be super useful, and it opens up the door, if you started sorting by rarity, that you're either going to have a very large amount of gaps in your cards, because you could say, well, top rows are epic wilds and the second to top row is wilds, and then the third to top row is uncommons, and then the bottom rows, how many ever rows are in your binders card holder sheets, are commons. That would be a bad system to use. You'd be better off instead saying all your epic wilds are on one sheet, and then the next sheet is all your wilds, and the next are uncommons, and then the next sheet are all commons, or just put. Really wouldn't even work that way. It would be just more subdividers, frankly. And you could do that easily if you had dividers like at the top and the side. So the side dividers would be cost, and then the top could be rarity. But again, that's a bad system. It's a much better system to off the top of my head, have the top subdividers be spells, creature spells, spells, maybe subdivision between instants and regular spells, enchantments and artifacts, and commanders and planeswalkers, because those would be that'd be much more informative. So that in general was a lot of talking off the top of my head on how I would organize binders and try to have a system. You kind of don't have any of that in Magic Arena. Like, you can do those sorts. You are doing a standard MySQL style database search that is what supports pretty much any website. So you can say, I want this, this, and this, and this, and that's useful if you know what you're wanting. But it doesn't start with anything that is close to what a realistic person would do in real life, so there's no connection or familiarity with the collection system as it's depicted, and it doesn't help you if you don't know what you're searching for. The collection as it's depicted right now is effectively the equivalent of taking all of your cards, all of your Magic cards, just piling them on the floor and then sorting everything by name and then subsorting everything by cost, and just having one extremely long list of cards on the floor. And what's funny about that is when you build a deck, they give you these nice deck boxes. They make it all pretty. They clearly are pushing and promoting people buy deck boxes, probably from Wizards of the Coast directly, if not from third-party developers. So they have the real-world mentality and equivalent there. They understand that. Let's see. Gain control of creature until the end of the turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until the end of the turn. Okay. Let's go ahead and let him do that. But then he's going to sacrifice him. Ah, darn it. This is a card steal strategy. I should have used my guy. Let's see. What did this do? So now he's just trying to steal the card even more. So he stole the card to steal the card to steal the card. Interesting. Well, we'll just block. Resolve. Let's go ahead and do our part too. And we'll see who's gonna win first. This. Sure, play this. That ruins his chances. Let's see. Game over. Apparently his strategy in that game was only to steal my cards. And it's a pretty pathetic strategy. Most decks are usually good enough that they can defeat their own cards, or at least have a strategy there. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. The Tim roadmap promises new islands, player housing, and more. Unfortunately, I think the more that they're not mentioning here is microtransactions. Let's see. This is a terrible background for this. In-game chat. chat bubbles, club management, 25 new Tintin player, emotes version 2.0, 25 new Tintin in-game tournaments, quests, diary, and achievements. Yeah. Oh, good. They typed it here for me, so I didn't have to read that. Spectator mode. Yeah. This story seems not to be mentioning the microtransactions, but I'm fairly certain, unless I'm thinking of a different game, I saw another story that did say microtransactions. And an online only Pokemon game, while intriguing to a lot of people, does not intrigue me, and it certainly doesn't intrigue me if it's going to have microtransactions in it. That's the same thing people are complaining about with Pokemon Home, and there's no reason to give a break to the developers of Tintin just while condemning the exact same practices from Game Freak and Nintendo. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Stronghold Warlords unveils an economic campaign. So this is a hype article for a game called Stronghold Warlords. We'll just skip that as we try to rush through these games. Yeah, honestly, if I'm going to get through all these games, I need to learn how to stop ranting. Let's see. Is this an old article? No. But it's an unimportant article. I'll just mention then quickly, Gamasutra has the article designing the offbeat comedy of Crows Accounting Plus game, which, okay. That was, I think, a VR only game, so it probably didn't have as many followers as it would have gotten had it not been VR only. Bandai, I believe, Capcom, sorry, is continuing to release more Mega Man games in collections. So this is the Mega Man 0/ZX Legacy Collection is now available on Steam. You can see it's mixed reviewed. Let's see why. It probably doesn't play well. Also requires a third-party EULA. Let's see. The keyboard controls are really bad. The two presets you can choose from are beyond atrocious. You can't fully customize your controls. You have to play with a controller in order to be comfortably play the game. You also have to reconfigure the controls every time you play Z Chaser. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mega Man Zero series of games was a DS game series originally, and because of that there's just a complete lack of controller support. The review here says, I would not recommend buying this game. It's kind of broken. You have to go to full screen resolution settings. You will break your game. If you go to full screen resolution settings, you break your game. Deleting saves in your Steam folder, disabling cloud saves will get your game to open again, but if you want to change the full screen 19 by 1080, you should do it in the config.ini. Yeah, that sounds terrible. So yeah, it definitely does feel like Capcom has decided to put out a bad game. I guess what I'll do is just leave this game on the follow list, and in 6 months, if it's fixed the problem, then maybe I'd consider playing them. Although, in all fairness, this is the problem I've had with Mega Man games from day one. Like, just a complete lack of accessibility and a entry path for new players. Some people will try and tell you to play I think some of the very early Mega Man games, which are super hard and require a lot of skill, whereas if you try to play anything later, you're going to be in the 10th game of a series, of which there seems to be 3 or 4 series. Even when they did on a few occasions make some reboot series that would have been more easy for new players to get into the Mega Man concept, those were never really done with a level of quality that is acceptable. So there really is no, from my perspective, I've yet to find a good Mega Man game worth playing that also wouldn't require me to jump through hoops to either know what's going on or to work my way up to that good Mega Man game. Like, I fully expect that Mega Man 10 probably is great, but it's gonna feel really weird to have to jump past the first 9 to get to that point. And I would argue that the general concept of Mega Man is a little basic anyways. It's an interesting idea. It's almost like a predecessor to a Metroidvania game, but they didn't seem to ever really expand on that. And a Metroidvania, a Metroid Prime game, probably does the general idea of beating bosses and getting weapons that might help you in a different area way better than most Mega Man games do. Yeah, I'm just gonna let him hit me on that. Like, I have the advantage here as long as he doesn't take up too much of my health. Let's see. Well, you know what? I think I could do this, this, and this. I'm just going to attack with all 3 and see if he wants to defend with any of them. Yeah, that should be fine. And then we'll use the spinning wheel to twist one of these guys later. Next we have a game on Steam called Jar Wars, which looks like a VR game where you're playing as floating jars fighting each other in a couple different ways. I suppose this is a joke around the idea of Star Wars in the name, but yeah, it generally seems like it is kind of just a weird player versus player combination of mini games for VR. It's free, so I can't say the price is terrible. It's being compared to Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, which is wrong. It's online player versus player only and English only. So, yeah. But it doesn't say it needs VR, but it definitely supports VR. So, I don't know. They've never been consistent on that warning shots, frankly. They need to be a lot more consistent there as far as telling people whether a game can be played without VR or not, without having to jump into the description of the game and finding somewhere in the middle of a potentially 3 paragraphs long description of a game whether or not it supports desktop play. Interesting. Let's see. Alright. If that's the way they're gonna do this, then we'll do this. Sacrifice that. And then we'll do that. So then we'll, I guess, go ahead and sacrifice this. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. Resident Evil 3 Remake demo has been announced. New preview gameplay and screenshots. I imagine a lot of these screenshots were part of the ones that were leaked. It really is, these are really dark, but it is a good indicator of how leaked screenshots really don't affect a video game much. That's a very Japanese looking guy. I wouldn't be surprised if his face gets a different skin for Western release, or maybe not. Maybe in Resident Evil 3 you'll just, one of the characters will be a very Japanese looking rough dude. There's a lot of hot takes on this. It's weird that Gamatsu is linking to so many different YouTube videos, but at least they're not trying to make their own. That has to account for something. Alright, well, let's see, do we want to go ahead and take this guy out? Yeah. They ain't got nothing. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 Remake seems to be doing fine. It seems like it was particularly going to be an easy one. The biggest danger, I would say, with Resident Evil 3 Remake coming out so quick and them not, and this is where I think that they're going to drop the ball, the people in charge of the Resident Evil series, is I think that they are rushing to make a Resident Evil 3 remake when they should be probably buying themselves some time. Wait another year, wait maybe even 2 years to bring out the Resident Evil 3 game, and maybe they will do that. Maybe they're just building hype now and pushing for a and they're planning to delay it more later. That could be the case. It's not guaranteed that that's going to be the case by any means. Man, I forgot to use this. Well, we might as well tap this guy while we're at it. Okay. So how are we gonna do this? We need one to defend, and yeah, we're gonna have to just take this a little slow, so I'm gonna just attack with one here. Yeah, so because they're not building in an extra bit of buffer there for the inevitable needed Resident Evil 4 remake, we're gonna have this situation where after the RE3 remake, they've either got to release the next Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 8, which they probably need to do anyways, and then there's going to be a dry spell, because they're definitely not going to be able to get away with once again remaking Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2. They might even get away with remaking Resident Evil 1 and some of the side games, but they're not going to get away with remaking Resident Evil 2 again. And it's going to be diminished returns as they start to remake after Resident Evil 4, which is the best-selling Resident Evil, if they start to try and remake Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 in particular is going to be a very hard sell, and there's no path in which they can really remake 7, since that's practically a brand new game. Let's see. Do we want to block this? And then do I sacrifice now or do I pass now? Okay. Can I play this to sacrifice one of these? And then can I play this to sacrifice the other one? Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Bastide, which looks like it's a kind of nice looking like city simulator, ancient city simulator. It doesn't seem like there's much to do there though. Seems like you just kind of build some buildings and get some resources and try to build it up, and it doesn't seem like there's any war or like trading or anything like that. It's $7.49 English and a bunch of other languages. I guess because it's kind of hard to tell. Here, there might be something here. So I'm gonna put it on the follow list. High probability there isn't anything there, but who knows, there might be something there. Alright, so at this point I desperately need both Citadel or just something powerful enough, something that can fly, something that can do damage before his people start doing major damage to me. Might as well sacrifice another food. And sacrifice another food. And then end the turn. Open Critic has an article here. Platinum Games reveals Project GG from Hideki Kamiya. Not to be confused with Hideki Kojima of Death Stranding fame. So it's, I believe, the second game to be really announced besides the remake, or no, there isn't a remake of Bayonetta, but Bayonetta 3 they also said the progress is moving smoothly there, which I guess that's good to hear if you believe it. And they're remaking Wonderful 101, which if that comes to PC, I think I might be willing to play that, because it does seem like it has some relevancy. Let's see what this teaser trailer looks like. Minute and 39 cents, starting with the platinum logo, which is not a bad logo, but it does kind of tell people nothing about what the actual name of your company is. What is Nature's Revenge? Well, looking at that, that seems like that would be a Parasite Eve game, which I'm not sure that they would have the rights. Some kind of invasion. We're seeing a dog tied up, and I have to come over here, so I'll pause this video and pass, and then decide no blocks. This goes. Okay. Got this. that. Next attack like that. Next sacrifice like that. In the turn. So he's got 3, 6, 9, 12. Is there anything I can do to survive this? I think I can do this. I'm probably gonna lose here. I was 1 mana short. Okay. Well, the smallest of creatures wins the game for me. I almost would have been awesome if I had actually planned that out in any way. And I wish these were ranked wins I was getting, but I'm not going to screw around with that. Got a card. I don't think I have that one before, so that one might be new. So yeah, when I was talking about the collection, well, now let's just go back here. You have these nice little deck boxes that right now they're not sorted amazingly well. You got a couple of them, got a couple of options, but they don't get small enough. And then you could zoom out here so that you're looking at slightly more cards. But there's no binder equivalent here. You have the newest cards you just got being sorted in a weird way. Or no, not that. You have the cheapest cards being sorted, and it just goes up and up in cost without even a divider or split here. So if I wanted to just look at 3 mana cards, I have to come over here and click 3, and then that lets me see just the 3, and then I would have to hit a color if I just wanted to see a specific color. But if I wanted to then subdivide between the types of cards, that would be a problem, certainly. So yeah, as I was ranting, if I was going to make a binder system of real world Magic cards, I'd use this row here as the top subdividers. So there'd be little tabs at the top on divider pages of this for each cost, and then I would use this row here on the side as subdivider tabs of 1, 0 through 7 plus. And then I probably would have the most recent expansion up front and go in reverse chronological order that way with a subdivider once you've hit the cards that are no longer in standard. And maybe if you have banned cards, put them way in the back, or you just keep them in a separate binder, and then yeah, a different color binder for each of them, which I guess also means colorless or multicolored should have its own separate binder. So man, it would be a whole shelf effectively of space to have your Magic collection if you even have a decent amount of Magic cards in the real world. And that's the beauty of Magic Arena and digital versions of card games, is you're not really going to have to deal with any of that. On top of which, you don't have to deal with damaging real world cards. You don't have to deal with people stealing cards, losing cards, dropping cards, getting them wet, bending them. All of that would fall under damaging, of course, but there's definitely a big issue there of just organizing them. Alright, back to this. So it seems to me like there's some magic users protecting a real world looking dog from a collapsing building that seems to me like it's either a big smoke monster or something else. Dragons. Yeah. Seems almost like it's a it's a Godzilla versus Ultraman type series. Project GG A Go-Go. Yeah, that sounds a lot like Ultraman, which doesn't make a lot of sense, I think, to most people in the West. But imagine Ultraman is kind of the equivalent of a predecessor to Power Rangers, except for there's only one of them, fighting monsters in rubber suits. And it's definitely older than Power Rangers, so, and less focus on robots as far as Ultraman is concerned. So a very Japanese game from a very Japanese company, I would say, as far as Platinum is. I wouldn't be surprised if we run into 3 out of the 4 games that they announced being a lot more Japanese centric than to the point where it's not something that will sell well at all in the West, but they're going to give it the old college try. It wouldn't be surprising if there is kind of this naive hope that Japanese games are just cool now and anything Japanese will sell, when I wouldn't really agree with that. I don't think that's really the case. So, yeah. We will just, I suppose, have to wait for more information as far as the other games in this game. I don't know how you make a game where you're playing as Ultraman and not have it be just like a fighting game of some sort. Even if it is just going to be some weird RPG game where, like, if it is an RPG game, then it gets down to a question of are you effectively just dungeon crawling on a very large scale, running into the same 20 or so style of giant creatures that you're fighting, and then you're just doing some kind of like either real-time combat or turn-based combat like any other dungeon crawler. Let's see, how did that guy get more counters? Well, we'll go ahead and block that and then do that because that's the right move. They even have a little different animation there now. Interesting. Put that on the field. Put that on the field. And then no attacks. In turn. Gamatsu has an article here. Diablo 4 quarterly update equals a user interface designer, controller support, co-op, and cannibal tribes. The first in a series of quarterly updates. The idea that controller support has not existed for PC up until this point is insane. It is, I suppose, equally insane to think that too many people want to jump back in bed with Activision Blizzard and play Diablo 4 when there's enough Diablo-esque clones out there to play instead. That I think have more interest or would be more have more of a player base. Let's see. The UI designer actually sounds like an intriguing idea where you could move around the heads-up displays. I believe The Witcher 3 allowed some of that, but I never really did anything with it. For a game like Diablo 4, if it was going to be your main game, if it was something you were just going to play non-stop, though, it does make a lot of sense that if something is irritating you, you should oh, here, can we indestructible. This one is not indestructible, so let's go ahead and do that, that, and that. Then block, and then sacrifice that, and then activate that, sacrifice that, and then put that back on the field, sacrificing that. Oh, and put that back on the field, sacrificing that. Yeah, until I get another mana, I can't do anything. But in a weird way, I kinda don't need to do anything either. I can just end the turn. Yeah. It's a nice little addition, certainly for Diablo 4. I guess if anybody out there is willing to still do business with Activision Blizzard, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but it's nice to see games being improved. Although some of that, like, controller support for Diablo 4 should have been day one, considering how Diablo 3 had controller support for the console versions, at least from day one, and so yeah, there really is no reason. And as I say it out loud, I guess Diablo 4 was announced and came out, and I completely missed it, because I'm thinking of Diablo 3 right now. I'm thinking of that game that came out for the Xbox 360, and I guess I've just been assuming that game had just been constantly getting support as a game as service type product, without realizing that they had announced something. Isn't Diablo 4 the game they announced with the teaser that... I guess Diablo 4 is not even out yet. They put out a teaser of it to try to win people over. Yeah, and I've forgotten about the teaser and the announcement completely. And Activision Blizzard's not doing good as far as controlling the message in my mind. Yeah, it was a teaser with a, like, sexy serpent lady or something like that. Like, that's pretty much, I think, all it was. And so this quarterly update is just promising more things, which makes sense. Jeez, if I can just hold back this guy for a while. I think he's probably screwing with me and just raising up his health as much as possible, because there's enough here where he could attack, and I could only defend against a couple of things. Meanwhile, every turn I'm failing to do my part in this. So let's go ahead and show that we actually know what we're doing. So we pass here until until he decides to attack. Then, at this point, that's where we sacrifice this creature and sacrifice this creature. And I should have been doing that for the past couple of turns. And now it's asking, am I sure? Once it triggers that "are you sure" prompt, that's when it never stops asking that. TechRaptor has an article here. Awry and the Secret of Seasons has been delayed until summer 2020. A game I have never heard of before. So, yeah. It's really another example of you really should not get hyped on these early announcement games because they get delayed like crazy. This is a notable delay in the sense that it's getting, at least for me, its first bit of my first look of the game, my first bit of information I hear about it is that it's delayed, which inherently has to kind of color my opinion somewhat of the game and make me think, well, is this a game that will never actually make it to publishing? Magic is so bad about these timers. Like, why is it causing me trouble? It's the opponent's turn. We need to stop after attackers. Resolve this that way, and resolve this that way. Play this. Yes, I'm sure. Play this. Yes, I'm sure. Finally. Now you're gonna get it. And that's why you mulligan and have at least 3 lands. Like, I had to work really, really hard to just survive. Meanwhile, my Blight Beetle is wreaking havoc on his deck. And now we've got several things we can do to start buffering up this guy like crazy. How did he get away with that? The Planeswalker ability to 0. It costs 0. If you have at least 15 life or more, destroy everything. Thanks. That's an awful situation. Well, I'm gonna lose here, so let's just look at this next game. So the game here called Vapor Maze, which looks like a dual gun you're wielding first person shooter with some neon artists I really like. It kind of looks a little bit low polygon-y. I won't call it an asset flip look, but it's not particularly my cup of tea. I'm not really being able to see if this is an enemy, or if this back there is an enemy, or if the game is just not showing any enemies, or if there's just like no enemies at all in the game. This is early access for $12.59, which is too expensive for what it looks like. English with allegedly full audio. No, believe that is also the first game we have lost today. So we doing extremely well, and perhaps if I play later I would do better in Magic, but it may also be just a factor of this being near the end of the month and people have kind of given up on trying to win. Could be any combination of anything. Next we have a game on Steam called Void Monsters 2 The Blight, which looks like an RPG Maker game. Wrote, maybe not actually using RPG Maker, but does just look like a RPG game. $3.49 discounted, English full audio. Nothing there. Honestly, at this point, I'm not sure I could ever be convinced to play a 2D RPG game unless it has major history and major relevance. It would make sense to go back and play Final Fantasy 1, 2, or 3, things like that. But I would much prefer to play a bad 3D game, something like the Neptunia series, the worst of the Neptunia games, over just a random 2D RPG, because it's kind of a limited form factor in a weird way. There's not a lot you can do with it other than tell a story that is at best going to be a good video game story, which is still not as good writing as many other kinds of stories and many other things that are written. Next we have a game on Steam here called Museum of Other Realities, which looks like it's probably a VR head trip kind of artistic expression. I don't even want to really call it a walking simulator. I feel like there is actually some attempts by somebody who thinks they're actually artsy to do something in this. This doesn't just feel like some low effort asset flip. But it would require VR, and it wants $19.99, which is particularly expensive for a VR game, particularly one that seems like it really is just going to be a presentation or a depiction of art. Well, I'm going to go ahead and attack with that. And we'll attack with this every turn and see if he decides ever to defend. If he does, we'll then have a flying creature to defend against him. Here's that other article I was talking about from TechRaptor. Tim microtransactions are coming in 2021. So, yeah. Let's see. They're saying they may change their microtransaction approach based on sales, expenses, and ongoing player feedbacks. They're saying it's going to be for cosmetics and other non-pay-to-win rewards, which is the standard phrase you would say when adding microtransactions, no matter what the truth actually is. Because they will definitely try to sneak in the pay-to-win elements later on, once people have forgotten about it and gotten used to it. Next, we have a game on Steam called Cat Warfare, which looks like a first-person shooter. I'm not really seeing any cats. It looks pretty dark. Here's some kind of robotic fox. Maybe that's supposed to be a cat? I guess it is. Wow, what a weird combination of a low-effort asset flip first-person shooter to just throw in cats and think that would work. Honestly, at a certain point, it starts to feel like these low-effort games are being developed by, at least the general concepts are being developed by an AI that doesn't understand humans. This is $4.99 online only, English only, with a third-party EULA. Yeah, there's nothing to do there. In all honesty, if you were going to play that general concept, you would want to introduce it into another first-person shooter. At any point, Overwatch could decide that they're going to have a cat experience and change all the skins of their characters for like Halloween into cats or something along that line. We're gonna have to see if this is gonna work. So that gimmick is easily done by anybody else. And if you were gonna make a cat game, you would have to impress upon the differences of a cat versus a human, their attitudes, their abilities. You'd probably alienate all the dog people out there that are the exclusively dog fans, or exclusive fans of dogs, or fans of exclusively dogs. I don't even know how you'd say that. I'm rambling. Okay. I can play this, and then I can put that on the field. And I can put that on the field. And then gotta basically sacrifice that right now. And then we eat that. And then no attacks. Next we have a game on Steam called Synthetic Blood Mindshift, which looks like a ninja running, hacking, and slashing game. And if the backgrounds were animated a little bit better, or a lot bit better, frankly, I might be interested in it and put it on the followers, but it just looks too ugly. It's also particularly cheap at a discounted $2.54. English and Russian. Looks like a Russian low effort game to me. Okay. I cannot believe that this is going to potentially work, and I don't think it is actually going to potentially work. He managed to exile one of my cards. Okay. So let's attack here. And I could have tapped one of these guys, but I'll save that for later. And then instead I'm gonna sacrifice this. And then that's gonna let me eat this. Which is gonna let me put this on the field. But I can't put this on the field. Tap this guy. Aha, now I gotcha. What are you gonna do about that? So we just trade for trade there. Okay. Do I have a way to do this the way like to do this. Alright, we're gonna have to gamble here. Sacrifice this one. Do that. So that we can then play this. Ah! I screwed up. I could have done that too. I just needed to have eaten a I just needed to eat a food token, and I screwed up and didn't. It's weird that we still haven't killed 25 of our opponent's creatures, but I guess my deck is not really built around the concept of killing the opponent's creatures. It's more a direct combo assault on the player. We've got a game here called Bizarre Barber, which is just a Beat Saber clone with a unique twist. I won't call it interesting, in that you're swinging around lightsabers to cut the hair off some artistically weird looking hairy creatures. So you're using scissors basically instead of, yeah. Anyways, $10.79 discounted, English only. Yet another Beat Saber clone, yet another game that has no chance of succeeding whatsoever. Let's see. Play that. Gamma Sutra has an article. Delta DNA and Earplay are partnering to bring analytics to voice-based games and apps, which I've heard of Delta DNA. Let's see. Earplay worked on Jurassic World Revealed, Office Hours, Pugmire, and Mr. Robot Daily 5-9. Delta DNA works with Sega, Bandai, 505 Games, and CD Projekt Red, and was acquired by Unity last year for an undisclosed fee. I still have a pretty hard time imagining a future when people are legitimately playing games while talking to them. I don't mind a game talking to me, but I definitely mind talking to a game. There's too many Asian game players out there that it would just be impossible or incredibly rude to try to play a game on a train. Too many people who commute even in the West who are commuting that would like to play games but are going to be unable to make that much noise. This is kind of the opposite end of the getting rid of the headphones argument, where people are getting forced into buying expensive wireless headphones just to play games in public without causing a commotion. Should have played this first. We've, over the decades, seen several games attempt talking to games, and they're always just gimmicks, and they never work at all. I believe that remaster of the game Vanquish, unless I'm thinking of a different game, is actually a game that has voice active controls, and when I tried to spotlight it, they just would not work in any fashion. So even though people seem to love Vanquish, as somebody new to the game, I certainly was unable to learn it and play it accurately. Also, as a YouTuber, I like really can't talk and criticize a game and then have to talk to the game to control the game also. Even if there was like some kind of guaranteed push to talk system, or like there probably isn't a way out there that I could trick a system into recording my microphone by default to the video and only listening to my microphone sometimes for the game. I don't think you would really want to do that with two microphones. That would be too complicated, but there might be a way to do like a push to talk toggle. But it would be a lot of hassle, and it still would be playing the game in a weird and awkward way that no normal person would have to do. And certainly as far as PC gaming, while there are a lot of aspiring YouTube, Twitch streamers out there, there's a decent majority of people that don't have microphones enabled or have just built-in microphones into laptops that are not of any quality that it'd be reasonable to try and use them. Alright, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, so we'll just do this. What I want to do is go ahead and just attack with all of these, and we'll see what they defend with, and hopefully he defends with something, and then we'll sacrifice with this if we get even one of these guys dead, which almost certainly we will, and then we'll play this to get rid of the rest of them. Of course, the scenario here is he defends with just this commander. He doesn't bother to defend this and this. Then I play something like that, which may still work for me. Really? Is he just gonna let it happen? Or was it just not his turn? Because it was waiting for me to pass the turn. Okay, that dies. That dies. Alright, I'm cool with that. Okay. Now we sacrifice this creature. And then we play this. Brings back this, which then lets us play this, and we can go ahead and play this, and we can go ahead and do this, and this is just like a straight up board clear, and I can already activate Bola Citadel. Wow, we're doing really good. So he's gonna have to work really hard to defeat me. Let's go ahead and resolve this and see what that does. I can just play that. I can play that. I can eat this. Field. What else do I want? Yeah, I'm having a surplus of choices here. Alright, then we can't tap that, but we could attack with this, and there's really no reason not to attack with that, so attack. If he tries to defend, he kills his only defender, Otherwise I get health and upgrade and everything I'd ever want. Plus he's down closer to 10, so without even using a vindictive vampire I might be able to win this. All I've got to do is manage to do 5 health damage without losing too many people. Komatsu has an article here. The puzzle adventure game Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon has been announced, playable at PAX East. So some people are still going to PAX East. It seems like the Shovel Knight developer announced several things, so we'll have some other articles, I think, to talk about it too. They certainly are trying really hard to make Shovel Knight like the new Mario. Kind of ridiculously hard to make it the new Mario when it's like that meme from like Mean Girls or whatever it is, where it's stop trying to make Shovel Knight happen, it's not gonna happen. Or stop trying to make Shovel Knight a thing, it's never gonna happen. That's kind of what it feels like now. Although in all fairness, this Tetris style game is not quite Tetris. It doesn't look terrible. None of the Shovel Knight games look terrible. They just have a tendency to be kind of short and simplistic. You've lost now, game. So, victory is ours. Let's see. We'll go ahead and just sacrifice these 3. So while I'm winning here, Shovel Knight Dig launches in 2021, and Hive Knight has been introduced. So, yet another Shovel Knight game. Yeah. I think the developer of Shovel Knight would have been better off moving on to a new series, just making another game. And the thing that it doesn't seem like they're really doing is working on or hyping up a sequel to Shovel Knight, like a pure Shovel Knight 2. I would also argue that Shovel Knight was a Kickstarter game that, while they gave a lot of updates and delivered, it seems like they've delivered on everything. They've done it over an extremely long amount of time, which I guess means they are one of the best examples of a Kickstarter game in the fact that they actually did deliver, and they didn't charge people more for the parts that they had planned on making anyways. But I'm not going to make this same mistake twice. I'm going to mulligan. Alright. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one. But yeah, there's definitely no indication that a Shovel Knight 2 is being actually worked on, or if it is being worked on, that it would be released in any kind of reasonable amount of time, or that the Shovel Knight developer is working on any non-Shovel Knight things. If anything, I would say the developers of the Shovel Knight series are geniuses at cross-promotion and advertising, and bad at developing video games. So, they would be, if I was the CEO of something like Ubisoft or EA, they would be a company I would think about talking about acquiring. I'd say, hey, let's acquire them and make them be in charge of our marketing division. We'll fund them a little bit to continue to make their Shovel Knight games, but mostly we want the talent of the people who know how to hype it up and get people something.
Anyone need a fire started?
And
no?
maybe that would work, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't work at all either, because it might leave fans of the Shovel Knight creators feeling a little betrayed. moving on, Komatsu has an article here. Insurgency Sandstorm for the PS4 and Xbox One launches August 25th. I guess this is a first-person shooter that came out in 2018 on Steam. It doesn't seem like just the problem here. Focus, Home Interactive, and New World are companies I recognize, but is there really room for a military first-person shooter that is in a Call of Duty or a Battlefield game? Like, can Insurgency somehow steal the reins from those two series that admittedly tend to be pretty bad at times? So maybe, yeah, I could see that maybe people, after the claims of boycotts without actually doing a great job of implementing boycotts for the Modern Warfare shenanigans that have happened and microtransactions and all of that. Yeah, there might be a way. I don't know if I really should be playing this right now, but so yeah, I guess it would be interesting if something replaced what exists now.
Fire spreads fast with help.
Next we have a game on Steam here called Beautiful Desolation, which looks to me like it is a sci-fi almost homage to the original Fallout 1 and 2 games, maybe even with a little bit of Diablo elements to it. The thing here is this could be a really short game. Like Fallout 1 and 2 I don't think are particularly long games, 20 hours, 30 hours. You're nowhere as much as all of the bloat of the Fallout 3 game and Fallout 4. So this is $17.99 discounted, English and a bunch of other languages. It is from, I guess, the same developers as Stasis. So I'm going to put it on the fall list just for that reason, because there was, I think, something quite genius with the way they promoted Stasis's predecessor, which was a horror point-and-click adventure game where you played as this woman who was, I think, impregnated by aliens, and she's wearing this weird, like, chest protector, metal chest protector on her with this giant pregnant belly. And Stasis itself I don't think was really, just click on it and look, yeah, but it was a continuation of that story. So here you have that being mostly positive, very positive. This was hyped up pretty well as
remember that spell.
a point and click. It's still kind of a point and click, but it's kind of a horror point and click that you don't get too much of. And then, yeah, Kane, or Kaney, was the free one, which I guess I may have not gotten the deluxe content for that. So here's Kane with this trailer that caught everybody's attention when it first came out. Very positive. So you wake up on this like weird monster medical table, and let's see if it shows. Come on, game, don't make me come over here. Alright, I'm gonna pause that video. Nope, just no bar. Alright, so back to this. So yeah, she's got this weird chest protector medical thing on her, showing off a very pregnant belly. And the game's so zoomed out you don't really see that too much, so it's not particularly explicit for that reason. It's kind of horrific for other reasons. So yeah. A third game in that series is interesting, although it is more thought-provoking, frankly, that I should go back. I should get Stasis and play it, and I don't think I own that. Doing follow-ups and continuations of series was a plan for my YouTube channel, and I do some of it, but typically what I do is I own Assassin's Creed 1, so it's particularly easy to also own Assassin's Creed 2, which is a really old game, and work on those really, really old cheap games than it is to say, here's a modern game, let's cover its modern sequel now, because that means I'm buying games at full price, which is difficult to justify. Can I activate this? Next we have a game on Steam called Warlander, which looks like it's an RPG hack and slash game, almost like a Darksiders looking game, if there's actually enough content here. I'm seeing a lot of skill trees that are nicely animated, but the fact that they're highlighting so many menus, but the actual game seems to be mostly just some different empty areas, is concerning. Never heard of Clock Drive Games. $13.49, English full audio, allegedly 40 achievements. That's reasonable for the price. I'm gonna put this on the fall list and see what the reception is, because this could be really good, or this could just be a standard RPG dungeon game with just a little bit better aesthetics and visuals than most. Finally, I get this. But the only way I can really activate it is by doing this. So, trade one guy for another guy. If I can keep my health up and get Bola Citadel in the next turn, I might be able to win, but otherwise, not likely. Check out there's a review for a game called Omnibion. Omnibion? Yeah, it looks, there's calling it a Star Fox game. It looks to me like it would be closer to a visual novel game, although from the looks of this screenshot it looks more like a fly around space game. You know, I do reject fly around space games and space dogfighting games so commonly. If there was something that was like Star Fox, which I actually did enjoy playing Star Fox 64, I would miss that completely. But Omnibion, here they gave a 2.5, which is incredibly bad review. Interesting. And this is an author that's, at least I recognize this screenshot. It'd be funny if this screenshot was used for multiple authors of their reviews. So it's not a new person, so I trust somewhat at least the 2.5 review, and yeah, that makes sense. That being said, a Star Fox game would be nice. It definitely would be nice. Gamatsu has an article here for the Switch. Mystery visual novel Gothic Murder Umi Okaru Adventure is coming March 12th in Japan. So more visual novels making our way to the Switch. No longer hearing any talk really from about the PSP. That seems to be a fairly dead. Yeah, I screwed up, but it doesn't matter. I was gonna lose anyways. I could have saved myself one turn here by tapping this guy here, but I wouldn't have been able to afford that anyways. This next story I think is going to be hard to talk about because Layman Gaming is a YouTube channel that is an up-and-comer as one of the potential reviewers of video games. They're kind of industry insiders, even though they're Australian. They get invited to events, so they're kind of on the inside, and they tend, even though they're kind of ridiculous in what they're doing, they tend to be somewhat credible compared to, say, just a random YouTuber like me spouting off something as if I'm an authority on anything. And so their take on this story is that they really just did not see evidence to justify what was being accused here. Seems like there was a bunch of tweets that have been deleted or hidden or something. And it seems like from Layman Gaming's opinion, so I'm just going to be a reporter here reporting on another opinion of someone else. It seems like they feel like it's unjustified, but the way this is phrased from Gamasutra's perspective, EA has banned a pro FIFA player from all their EA games for threatening messages and behavior. Both ends of extremes of this is believable. It is totally believable that a pro esports player would go too far and do something that actually was so unacceptable that they deserve to be banned from all EA games. It is also totally believable that EA is just lying or exaggerating, being virtue signaling or trying to play the victim, saying that this pro FIFA player said something critical of, say, the community managers, I believe was a major part of it, or some of it at least. So he seemed to be naming specific community managers and saying something critical of them, but it doesn't seem like that directly turned into or meant that they were that he was being threatening. But okay, there seems like there's, well, geez, I didn't need to do that, did I? I thought I had more swamps, but I didn't, so sacrificing that guy to get a flying creature was unnecessary, and I probably should have saved the Witch's Oven for the next turn. So, the article continues from Gamasutra. EA has doled out a ban for Kurt0411 Finnick, a competitive FIFA player and streamer with a history of unsportsmanlike behavior. It seems like his YouTube account also has been attacked, for lack of a better term, for like copyright claims, DMCA claims, and the now lesser used but now growing in popularity private information release attack, which is to say that somebody's claiming that their privacy is being violated by what is being said in this. It does kind of scream like there is a butthurt employee of some sort at EA that is going after this guy, perhaps justifiably, perhaps not. The only quote here we can say: abusive and threatening messages and videos about EA employees and competitive players, and encouraging his online end quote. is the reason for his ban. And then they end the quote, and then there is a added on part here that's not quoted that says, and encouraging his online following to follow in his footsteps. So they're making a lot of claims here without a lot of evidence. Now, of course, though, this is a standard troll behavior, so take it one way or the other. Like, if somebody is going to act as a troll, they're going to make a bunch of offensive, potentially threatening, maybe even push the line into potentially illegal comments, and then they're going to delete all those comments and play the victim once they get attacked. This is really where EA would have had to been the grown-up, and they would have had to done their homework, and EA has not done the homework, so now EA looks suspect. The way you've got to do this is you've got to, one, be the grown-up, and like I said, and decide, is what he's doing free speech, or can it in any way be construed as free speech, or what is the blowback if we act on this even if we don't like what he's doing. 2, do your homework, collect, screenshot, and have all of that information ready to go, and be willing and have legal ready to post at least some of this information in some redacted way, because the problem now is it is EA's word against the streamer's word, and EA's word is not worth anything because they've done so many terrible things and they've lied so many times. So people are more than willing to side with a random pro gamer. So yeah, EA's dropping the ball, as EA often does. Yeah, that sucks. So we need to block here, block in to trigger that. And it's not doing the are you sure yet. Then sacrifice that. And then sacrifice that. Still not doing the are you sure. Still not doing the are you sure. Oh. Don't have enough mana to tap that guy, unfortunately. But I do have enough to just go ahead and attack if I want, so I might as well. Yep. Next story, we have Gamma Sutra here. There's an obituary for the Konami creator, Konami code creator, Kazuhisa Hashimoto. Now, I would like to be a little critical on how a lot of people have responded to this on Twitter, because there's a lot of people that are just putting the Konami code in their tweets and not linking to an obituary article or explaining what they're doing. There's a lot of people that just says the creator of the Konami code has died. I seriously doubt that anybody keeps their job for long if they just create the Konami code and nothing else in their entire career. Even in a union job in Japan, that's ridiculous. So there needs to be more information, more explanation about his life, and not just boiled down to something so simplistic, often not even bothering to say his name. So I had to go through like 10 posts on Twitter that did that. And I know people are trying to be nice, but you know, you should remember somebody for more than that. So the obituary goes on. He passed away at the age of 61, which is certainly not particularly old. He was a game programmer. Let's see. And yeah, they've got really nothing else to say about him. That's Game of Sutra are pretty pathetic when they do these obituaries, which we're getting more and more as these people start to age more and more. But it is particularly bad when your entire life's career is just, oh, I invented the Konami code. On the other hand, as a YouTuber content creator, like, I'd rather be remembered for something than nothing. I run into often on my channel, my best viewed video is a how-to video on how to use Hearthstone Deck Tracker in its old version with OBS, and how to set that whole thing up. And that got way more views than any of my other videos, and still gets a ton of views even though it's completely outdated and irrelevant. And yeah, if I was just looking for reviews, yeah, I would have switched my entire channel to just a how-to channel at that point, and given up on being a video game critic and doing the thing I wanted to do. But part of the beauty of starting a YouTube channel was to do what you wanted to do and not what would potentially be more successful. And who's to say how long that would have worked. Anyways. Alright, well, do I want to tap something? I can't. Alright, so we can kind of end the turn anyways. Yeah, I really wish there was a lot more information about him. Speaking of wishing for a lot more information, the Giant Bombcast this week, incredibly sparse. I think they talked about maybe 2 games for the entire podcast. Like, ridiculously nothing to talk about. It's not like last week's video game news was so incredibly large. There is a lot of people leaving GDC and PAX because of the coronavirus, and we even have an article of yet another company leaving one of those events because of the coronavirus, or concerns around the coronavirus. But that was pretty much all that happened over the last week. Next we have a game on Steam called Rydo, which seems like it's probably supposed to be Below and has been combined with maybe the idea of reload. Looks like a low polygon asset flip first person shooter on floating islands for no good reason. Early access $6.39, 26 achievements. It's a little high in the achievement count. Yeah. Nothing there that's interesting to me. Game of Sutra has an article here. Facebook has acquired Asgard Wrath developer Sanzaru Games. I think Asgard's Wrath is actually a decent game, so maybe they're going to have them develop more VR games and continue down the Oculus path. One would hope that's the case, and then that's just going to have them make a bunch of mobile, let's see, like mobile Facebook games. I kind of wish this guy would die, so we'll just do that. How about that? Sacrifice that. Submit that. And sacrifice that. Submit that. Too much submitting. Yeah, I don't know why I really need to submit. I would much prefer the submit button to show up and have to discard a card versus when you when you have to sacrifice something that obviously you'd only be clicking on because you wanted to sacrifice it. Does this have reach? No. So I think I can attack with these two. Can't tap anybody. Give it up a 1 and 2. Next we have a game on Steam called Heaven Dust, and then a bunch of Asian characters. It looks to me like it's a mobile RPG game that's been ported to PC. Looks like it might have some zombies you're shooting, and some kind of horror game. There's nothing here of interest visually. $6.79 discounted. English, Chinese, German, Russian. It's probably a Chinese game if I was to guess. I don't mind this character art, but it's so zoomed out even here, and you're just running into dark screenshot syndrome even in the thumbnail. And then when you look at it here, that art 3D model looks nowhere as good as even that 2D model did. Come on. It's playing all these constellations to try and get this guy to buff up another guy, but it's, I don't think, working particularly well for him. TechRaptor has a feature article here. What makes a monster of fear is made manifest in word, image, and play. It really is more just an opinion piece than anything else, with a bunch of screenshots of either games, movies, and other things. It's basically so there's no reason to really talk about it, and doesn't really have any impact on what future video games are going to be made, or how future video games are going to be made. Okay. Pass this. Defend against this. And defend against this. And then I guess what I'll do is sacrifice this. And then just sacrifice this anyways. And then bring this back. Bring this back. Yeah, I think that wins the day for me. Because, let's see. 1, 2, 3 there. And then end the turn. Gamma Sutra has an article here. 2 of Riot's games' next few projects. 2 of Riot's next few projects are being developed with Unity. What a terrible headline. You have 2 as the number, so the word few shouldn't be there. It should just be 2 of Riot's next projects are being developed with Unity. The idea of saying next few projects is just to imply that it's not the exact 2 the 2 projects are going to be developed with Unity, which is not really implied in that sentence anyways, because if you're going to say you would phrase it more, the next 2 Riot games are being developed in Unity. So I don't know if you have a native English speaker writing these articles half the time. So yeah, Riot, the owners of League of Legends, developing in Unity, makes sense. Unity opens the door to making mobile versions a lot easier than, say, Unreal or your own custom engine. And I think League of Legends would definitely want mobile versions of their next games. Although, it is also, I think, somewhat fair to say that Riot, I don't think, has a huge history of success amongst multiple games as much as they just have a huge history of success with League of Legends. So there is a decent chance that the next couple of games that Riot makes don't really sell that well. They may have saturated the market as far as games they can make that interest people. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Open world adventure platformer Spirit of Glance has been announced for consoles and PC. It looks cool. Looks like a NES style of game platformer. Well, let's see. That looks terrible though. That is not what I was expecting at all. So the one screenshot I saw looked good, and then the rest of the game, maybe not so much. Yeah. Maybe it's a Kirby clone. That would be interesting. It's not like there's been a ton of Kirby clones. Okay. So we want to block this. And we want to block this. Block. And then sacrifice this. And can I synchronize here? Because I want to activate this too. What's he doing? Is he trying to counter my thing, or does he have to pass? Then activate this. Yeah, he decided that he lost. This is working really well, this deck. As long as I don't play ranked. As long as I don't play ranked, it's working really well. We had a ton of games left over from Monday. I'm not sure we're actually going to get to those at this rate. Next we have a game on Steam here called Crowns and Pawns Kingdom of Deceit, which looks like it's a point-and-click adventure game with 3D animation, which looks interesting. Although I would like to make reference here. Let's see. So apparently riding on a train or something with this guy, and same posture in this cutscene as where was the other one I saw? Must have been in the video. Let's see. We'll see it here in a second. This other cutscene. But in this other cutscene, she's wearing here. Pause. She's wearing what looks like either a tracksuit. On first glance, it looked like a swimsuit of some sort. And that would seem extremely, extremely weird. I guess this is a bus that they're riding on. Like, nobody's going to be arriving, even if you were in like a swim track. Well, either way, yeah, you're not gonna be arriving in your outfit for a track event for swimming or running. Like, the idea that any kind of event would happen and there wouldn't be a changing room made available to you is kind of ridiculous. And if it were a swimsuit, riding back in a wet swimsuit would be particularly uncomfortable, unhealthy, probably. So you're not something you'd want to do. It's something that might happen in an emergency, but it wouldn't be something that you would depict. So what does that have to do with that point-and-click adventure? Not really anything, other than maybe they didn't think things all the way through. And if they didn't think things all the way through in that aspect, they maybe don't think everything through in the rest of the game. But reviews would tell me that way more than baseless or nearly baseless speculation on that game. Probably shouldn't have played that, but whatever. We may have to wrap up earlier than I was hoping today. My back is still killing me, and it feels like it probably will kill me for the rest of my life until it actually does kill me. Shifting in the chair is still causing spasms on rare occasions, and that's certainly no fun. We have a game here for the Switch. Romance visual novel Nin Nin Days is coming March 12th. An Akihabara set story featuring a clumsy female ninja. So yeah, this was first launched on Steam in 2019, and we don't have any other screenshots for it. So let me click on this and see. That, in a weird way, that might add some relevancy to it. It is tagged on YouTube as having nudity. Let me see if these screenshots are YouTube family friendly. Yeah, they look fine. So here's it on Steam for Nin Nin Days. So yeah, Ninja Girl and lewd events with sexual content and nudity. $12.99. People like it. I'm gonna put it on the follow list. Actually, come to think of it, there's really no reason not to just put it on the wish list. Doesn't mean I'll buy an adult game ever or be able to cover it, but if I am being fair and holding games to the same standard and not just arbitrarily excluding adult games, it deserves to be on the wish list. Plus, if people really want to support me and get me adult games, I'm more than happy to support the industry and buy adult games that I never get around to playing. Way more than I would be buying, or say, a AAA game and supporting an industry I don't really want to support. Like, it would be silly for me to buy Call of Duty, because I'm probably never going to buy Call of Duty, nor do I really want to support the developers of Call of Duty. I guess this is my turn. So I'm just gonna attack here. See what they decide to do. This is gonna be another one of these situations where I'm gonna struggle to find a swamp, and I need 2 more swamps. Next, we have a game on Steam called Stilt Fella, which looks like an interesting tech demo of playing a game on stilts and doing some small challenges on stilts, but it does also look way too asset flippy and not like a finished concept. I feel like if you were going to have a game where you played on stilts, that would have to be like one sequence that would be a very comedic, Jackie Chan-esque experience. Right, so these guys are flying, so I should be doing this every turn, and kind of failing to realize that. Okay. This is All creatures able to block that do so. This guy has first strike. Oh, this is gonna suck. I'm gonna go ahead and attack this way. And when he defends with first strike, that just kills that, doesn't it? And first strike does work with defending. I didn't quite understand that. Stealth Fella is $8.49 discounted, and a bunch of languages supported. But yeah, that's too expensive. Interesting idea. Something you could have as a gimmick inside a bigger game. Not something that I think can be a product on its own. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here for the PC and PS4. Predator Hunting Grounds trial weekend is set for March 27th through 29th. Play solo as the Predator or team up with 3 other on a fire team. So it looks like it's an asynchronous 1 versus 3 game, which they've been trying to make games like that work, and they never seem like they really do work. This looks interesting enough, but without a story, which it seems like there will be no story here, and a single player mode, which don't get confused when they say play single, they mean play single as the Predator against other online players. At least that's my understanding of it. Okay. This guy can't block. Thanks for that. This guy has to block. And this guy has to block, which leaves him wide open to win. Interesting. And pulling off this, say he's sacrificing this, doesn't stop him from still attacking the other people. Yeah. That worked insanely better than it ever deserved to. Right. So we'll try this here. And almost certainly this won't work. Grab this. Sacrifice that. Yeah. I could sacrifice one more familiar, do one more damage, gain one more health. That's pretty much all I can do though. I would have needed to get these on the field earlier, and I was just overpowered by that. By his successful development of a lot of buffered up characters despite my Blight Beetle. So the Blight Beetle did not stop this guy from getting buffed, which he's getting buffed by an enchantment. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Catalindia Crisis at Fort Pawprint, which looks to me like it's a cat-based RPG with some kind of flat animation to it. This is $4.99, no discount, English only. I'm gonna put it on the follow list because, like, if there's actual effort here, it might be good. Otherwise, it's probably pretty bad. There is also an argument that the one cat-based game out there with its sequel saturates the market as far as games where you play as cats and RPG elements. Like fully. Alright, I'm gonna just start covering the news at this point. Let's see. See if I can shift in my chair without hurting my back horribly. The answer to that question was no, I can't. Alright. I think we'll do one more game, and then that'll be it for games. If we have other bits of news that we need to talk about, we'll do that without playing games. Gamatsu has an article here. Golf with Friends is coming to the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch in 2020. Golf with up to 11 of your friends. I feel like Golf with Friends has been in early access. Yeah, it's been on Steam in early access since January of 2016. Is it still in early access at this point? Yes, it is. At that point, I'm gonna try and remove that from my wish list, and that requires work. So I'm gonna leave that where it is and deal with that off screen. 4 years on early access is unacceptable. And then coming out to consoles and still claiming to be early access is unacceptable. Gamatsu has an article here for the PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. Harmonix has announced a DJ music game called Fuser. Here you have a CG DJ girl. Questionable. I would imagine it's not going to include any plastic DJ item. And there's a list here of songs that I probably don't care about. Not a lot of songs being mentioned here. What a DJ game like this needs to do is it either needs to run off of a regular controller. It probably needs to do that regardless. But then secondarily, it could run off of a tablet or smartphone where you're swiping your fingers. Any kind of touch screen, really. Swiping up and down to shift the record player and move the dials and such. This would be bigger news if it weren't for the fact that it's probably going to be delayed and it's been so long. The Black Mesa fan remake of Half-Life has a final set date for March 2020. 14 years. Let's see. Like, I think it's a remake of Half-Life 1. I don't think it is a new game. If it was a new game, then you get into some weirdness. I mean, either way, you get into some weirdness about Half-Life Alyx potentially coming out really close to Black Mesa, or Black Mesa coming out really close to Half-Life Alyx, and them cannibalizing their own fan base, of which it seems like there's a lot of fan base for Half-Life still, but I wouldn't be surprised when people actually have to put their money down if there's a lot less than you would think. Like maybe a rabid large number of people that pre-ordered the game and then extremely low post-release sales as the people who wanted it bought it, and that was that. Like Half-Life 3 would be the pinnacle it really would be the pinnacle Kickstarter game just because of that factor. People would totally Kickstarter Half-Life 3. Trample and lifelink, which means I can just attack this if I want to. Gamatsu has an article here. The retro-inspired racing game Hotshot Racing has been announced for the PC, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. I wish there was a phrase to say everything, but if I said everything, then that would potentially include Stadia and GeForce Now and other services that I wouldn't be thinking about. Hotshot Racing here looks kind of just like a low polygon racing game, but you know, we need some kind of Mario Kart competitor on PC, and this might be the best option we're gonna get, even though it does look pretty ugly. That does look pretty bad. Here's an exciting bit of news that may mean nothing and it may mean a lot. I would argue we've heard enough rumors at this point to assume that Horizon Zero Dawn is coming to PC, and we have another hint here, as it has been listed on Amazon France as PC. So, yeah. I would love to play Horizon Zero Dawn, although it's gonna be kind of hard to justify playing it now because it kind of doesn't have any relevancy until they announce like Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which if they announce that, then that brings it back into the conversation. There was another article, I don't know if I have it, where the Sony was specifically talking about how they weren't really planning for exclusives during the launch window of the PlayStation 5, which sounds like an insane thing for Sony to do. So, if that's truly how things are going to go, that's going to be bad for Sony PlayStation. Like, the one thing they had going for them was their exclusives. This is going to attack this guy. Gamatsu has an article here. Shin Sakura Wars, the animation, begins airing on April 3rd, so this is an anime based on the Sakura Wars video game series. Okay. There is also an anime based on the a visual novel lewd series where you're dating cat girls that's been airing for a while and doing well enough, certainly. Okay, I was wrong. Let me correct this. For the record, it was not Sony, it was Square Enix that said they have no plans to release titles exclusively for the next generation until somewhat further down the road. That makes a lot more sense considering how Square Enix really only has a few games that they can sell, and they need to sell it on as many platforms as possible. The idea, this effectively means the remakes of Final Fantasy and future Final Fantasies probably not going to be a PlayStation 4 exclusive, which still very much hurts PlayStation 5 sales, because they've said before even the release has happened to the Japanese audience, you don't have to buy a PlayStation 5 to play the next Final Fantasy. Or they may own Monster Hunter also, Square Enix, so that's a pretty big statement. And more evidence, I would imagine, that the relationships are eroding as far as between Japanese companies and Sony. Let's see. Komatsu has an article here. Side-scrolling shoot-'em-up Rigid Force Redux has been announced for the Xbox One and Switch. Noticeably absent is the PlayStation, although maybe it's already on the PlayStation. I think this is just an intro video. Yep, it's a side-scrolling shooter, shoot-'em-up. It wouldn't, from the images I'm seeing, call it a bullet hell game, which might be a good thing. Like most of the bullet hell side-scrolling shooters or shoot-'em-ups tend to be even more extreme beyond what I would normally want to play. They tend to look way too difficult for an average player. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a Job Double Fine Productions is hiring a multiplayer programmer, so I guess the next the next game they're working on has multiplayer in it, which is it Brain Age? No, that's not the name of it. Psychonauts 2, yeah. I guess Psychonauts 2 is probably going to have multiplayer in it. Yeah. We've got this. Twitch Prime listed its loot. You get Bomber Crew, which I guess if I get that for Steam, that would be great. Although I don't think you get Steam codes through Twitch Prime. You get Epistory, Fury. Bomber Crew I was told to play by a fan and I never got around to it. Fury is a game I want to play at some point. Also, Whispers of Machine and Mugsters. We can just show off there. Fury is really the big game there, and the rest of these are small games with not a huge amount of recognition. There's also some loot for Apex Legends, FIFA, Destiny 2, Madden, PUBG, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, League of Legends, Ring of Elysium, Black Desert Mobile Online, and Raid Shadow Legend. A lot of loots, not anything hugely interesting with the loot. See, that was a back spasm that I don't even know where that came from. This is getting worse and worse. Let's just finish this game and then I think we're gonna have to wrap up. And I think I'm gonna have to curate my news and the games for Friday, or we're just gonna have stuff left over. I think I could just do this, and I think I can win anyways. Square Enix trademarked Gunslinger Stratos World in Europe and US and Canada. Looks like it's probably some kind of RPG game. There are a few anime things called Gunslinger, but I don't think there's a series around that way. Kojima Productions appoints Jay Bohr as the new global head of marketing and communications. Which, okay, maybe they'll market their next game a little bit better than they marketed Death Stranding, in the sense that maybe they'll actually tell you what Death Stranding is before people buy it, and then realize that it is something very different from what they expected, even though I think they were fairly obvious, or somewhat obvious, about what that game was going to be. Some people definitely feel deceived. VVV Tunia launches July 2nd in Japan. New virtual idols have been confirmed. The next Neptunia game. I think it's coming to the West. Do I want to block? No, just do no block. Okay. And then you just tap this guy. And then you just play this. And just do all attacks. A 2D side-scrolling action game called Kimono Heroes for Switch launches February 27th. in Japan. Looks like it might be something. Like but it would be questionable whether it would come over to the West with that name. Famitsu has its review scores. Let me see. There's only like 4 games mentioned. Doraemon's Nobita's New Dinosaur got 28 out of 40. Dreams got 36 out of 40, so they really like Dreams. Super Tennis Blast got 31 out of 40, and Vortex Attacks EX got 28 out of 40. So with the exception of Dreams, nothing was good this week. And on top of that, it is worth mentioning that seemingly only 4 games came out this week or got reviewed this week. Perhaps that is coronavirus inspired or affected. I wouldn't be surprised if Famitsu did just tell its employees to work from home. Yeah, that may be exactly be the case. Steam's latest search feature are straight from Steam Labs experiments. There's an article from Gamma Sutra talking about the search. Steam is going to just continuously experiment more publicly with their search features and such. Okay. So we got 10 victories, so we got all the experience today. But yeah, I guess maybe over the weekend and even on Thursday, if I just stayed in bed and played Magic, that would be something to do while laying my back heal. It's not really what I want to do though. I want to finish Batman Arkham Asylum, and I have scheduling that needs to happen. Let's just start going through some games and close some things. We have a game here called Porsche Hall of Legends VR, which seems like it's a real Porsche game. It's free to play. So if you like Porsche cars and want to look at them in a VR element, it does not look terrible. It is basically an advertisement, but it would be the equivalent of going to like a Porsche museum. Let's see. Got a Chinese game here called Wise Escape from Prison, made by Korean teens. It looks incredibly ugly. Like free to play, English screen. Like you can tell me it's made by teens. I don't care. It shouldn't be on Steam. Don't waste people's time like that. Here we've got one that's just Chinese characters. So it says it's a massive multiplayer. It looks like it's a strategy resource management game. English is not supported. It's free. It's Chinese only. It looks not like a terrible Chinese game, but certainly not a good Chinese game. Here we have VEGSIM Overhead Crane Simulator, which this feels more like a virtual reality training software than an actual game that people would want to play. And I don't know how many jobs are out there where you're controlling a crane in a factory or whatever this big metal building is. $8.99 English only. Yeah, nothing there. I did not curate any of this. That's the whole point. Is that why there's so many games? We've got another game here that's just a bunch of Asian games, and I am particularly skipping anything that looks like it's good, so we are just pouring through the bad games to curate. Yeah, it looks like a Chinese Diablo-esque clone. Free. Chinese only. Doesn't look terrible, doesn't look amazing. I've really yet to see any amazing games out there. from Chinese developers. Here we have Anime Artist 2 Lovely Danya, which seems to be an anime character that just talks to you, and some standard images here. And I think Anime Artist 1 was kind of like you're playing a visual novel of somebody who's an artist who draws anime. Be interesting to see what the reviews on the first game was. Well, they said positive. It was tag nudity. So they seem to be going down that route, although this one doesn't even seem like it's being tag nudity. It's an interesting concept for a series of spin-off anime games, but they're particularly cheap too. So I do like this full English audio, if it really is full English audio, but it does feel like it's a paint by number mini game, so not a lot going on there. Yeah. So I don't know. There might actually be an idea in that if you don't want to embrace and play a full visual novel, but you want to get halfway towards it and play a connect the dots mini game in the same way that Honey Pop is not a full visual novel, but instead is a match 3 mini game. That's something to think about. Here we have a game on Steam called The Dungeon of Nahubek, the Amulet of Chaos. I believe we had already talked about this game, as I think this is the one with Felicia Day voicing one of the characters, probably this elf girl. It's being made by published by Dear Villagers, and I thought it was Anna Perina, but it says Artifacts. So yeah, this one's not out yet. I'm going to put it on the fall list. It's getting some early buzz, which doesn't mean a lot. Meanwhile, we still have garbage games like Anime Girls Loot Box Simulator that nobody should spend any money on, but just most of the time spent selecting terrible dialogue options. $2.24 English, allegedly full audio. That's easy enough to close. And let me just gonna toggle over each of these games and see if there's any name that sticks out as something worth mentioning. Here we've got another one that's all Asian characters, so those are easy to dismiss. This looks like this might be a shoot 'em up or a mobile game. I guess it's a mobile game from the looks of it. English is not supported. Chinese only. Yeah. Mobile game ported. Doesn't look terrible, but the menu's definitely not converted to 16:9. But the main game looks like it is. So I've seen a lot worse. And yeah. Let's see. Here we have a game called E-Ball, which by that name has almost certainly got to be a terrible Marvel game. And yeah, on the briefest of looks, it does look like a terrible Marvel game. $19.99, third-party EULA and English. I'm willing to make a mistake here and not dive any deeper, because yeah, it doesn't. I don't think there's anything here they could say that would convince me it's worth $20. Let's see. We have a game here called Super Arcade Boy and Goodbye Greenies, which is clearly a collection of old arcade games. Mostly it seems like it's just a shoot 'em up game, and that's it. It's $1.79, English only. Yep, just kind of what you would call a low effort shoot 'em shoot 'em up arcade game by today's standards. You can't just make old games and expect them still to work. I did want to make a mention here. Azure Lane Crosswave, the PC version of the cell phone game that I tried to play and found particularly boring and slow, and there's just like no way to automate it compared to Destiny Child where you can automate everything. So I can just say play yourself and get me the experience and let me just enjoy the game that way. This PC version is at best mixed, and everything I've heard is pretty bad. The main flaw in it, besides the controls being particularly bad, and if you want to know the story of Azure Lane, they have some kind of magical cubes that turn war naval ships into anime girls, and there's 4 or 5 different divisions. So there's like the Germans, the Chinese, the Americans, and you mix and match to make your fleet and fight. The problem with the PC game is it's like 90% cutscenes. It's also $50, whereas Azure Lane on the cell phone is free to start, at least. I really wouldn't call it free to play. Let's see. So just a lot of negative reviews about how it actually plays and how it was actually ported, which is not the way you want to go if you're going to make that special effort to bring over a cell phone game that has done fairly well. Azure Lane is like one of the top 3 games often in weekly sales. So people are enjoying it on the cell phone side. So if you're going to make that transition and port it to PC and you're a success, you can't half-ass it. You have to whole ass it. You have to put as much effort as possible into it to open it up to a new audience and satisfy the desires of that new audience, who will be different and need to be treated differently. Humble Bundle now, we have a natural and digital painting kit, which for $1 you get what I think is a kaleidoscope software of some sort. And if you pay more than the average of $18.45, you get Flame Painter and Particle System Flame and Particle System Reborn. This all seems like this is plugins to Flame Painter, a software I've never heard of. And then if you pay $20, you get Rebel 3, which is a software I've never heard of, and then Paper Aquarelite and Paper White Simple, and some more plugins clearly for that Rebel software. None of these are reasonable softwares to use for painting. Let me just stop Humble Bundle right there. Use the open source software GIMP and learn Photoshop. That's all it has to do. If you're going to try and be good at painting digitally, you're going to need to learn Photoshop. You're going to go onto YouTube looking up tutorials. They're going to tutorialize you using Photoshop. So you just have to learn Photoshop. GIMP is almost exactly the same layout as Photoshop, although it's missing some of the more advanced plugins and features that more recent Photoshop things have got. But you can definitely do what you need to do with Photoshop. And I would also argue that perhaps you don't need to start digitally when drawing. You're probably way better doing 10 years of apprenticeship teaching yourself to draw physically before you even touch a computer than trying to learn from day one while touching a computer. because the concepts in Photoshop are taken directly from drawing and art classes that you would take otherwise. There's also a Doctor Who mixed bundle that doesn't seem like it includes any video games for Doctor Who, of which there's only a couple. Instead, it has comics and audiobooks. And then that brings me back to my Twitter feed, and it would have to be pretty much a huge bit of information for me to really want to talk about it, because my back is just in really bad shape. Let's see. Roblox raises $150 million for game making and game playing platform. We'll talk about that on Friday. A new Chinese visual novel game has been released. We'll talk about that on Friday if we get around to it. Shiver, SHIVER, is hiring a game programmer and software engineer. Let's see. Yeah, I probably should just end here and scroll through my Twitter feed on my own time, because I'm clearly just gonna need to lay up in bed and play Magic, get the 15 wins on Thursday. That would be a helpful little boost. And if any bits of news I missed, I guess I'll just miss it. I doubt too much is happening. So that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching.